Let me begin by saying that this research paper was fascinating for us because we found, in effect, the opposite to be true from what the assumptions were in the existing literature. In other words, we found that perceptions of firm-specific human capital seem to be quite different from the way people assumed objective firm-specific human capital might be in the real world. Firm-specific human capital are knowledge and skills of individuals that is more valuable in their current firm than any other firm. So, for example, imagine Sally, a software engineer at Plum Computers. She has deep knowledge of Plum's smartphone operating system, and her knowledge is primarily valuable to her firm, to Plum. It is also valuable to an extent to other firms who are producing apps for the operating system, but they don't require the deep level that Sally has, and so her knowledge is especially much more valuable to her current firm, to Plum. And this is important because that creates a gap in the value that she creates for Plum versus the value that she could create for another firm, and accordingly the wage that another firm would pay her compared to the value that she creates for Plum. So Plum must pay her at least the wage that she could get at another firm, but the value she's creating for Plum is worth so much more that, in fact, Plum is able to capture value. This is a source of competitive advantage because Plum is able to capture value because they only have to pay her perhaps a little more than what she could glean at the next highest paying company out there. Not only that, but this value that Plum realizes might be sustained over time because other firms would not be able to hire Sally away because Sally would have to take, in effect, she would have to take a wage cut to move to another firm. And then it's not even clear that her knowledge would be directly applicable at another firm. This assumption here is that the firm-specific human capital is in fact an objective reality that is perceived widely by all the stakeholders. So Plum perceives that Sally's skills are firm-specific, Sally perceives that the skills are firm-specific, and other firms that might hire Sally also feel that they are firm-specific, and they adjust their wages, they adjust their assessments of the value that she could create accordingly. In reality, the question that we raise is whether in fact those perceptions are so deeply aligned, or whether in fact each individual might have different subjective perceptions of the reality. And to study this question, we engaged two large data samples of workers who were asked to what extent are their skills valuable in their current job, are they equally valuable in other firms doing similar jobs. What we find is that those workers who perceive their skills to be firm-specific, in fact, it is quite different from what would be predicted in the literature. So for example, those workers who perceive their skills to be highly firm-specific are in fact workers who are lower in tenure, so they haven't been at the firm for very long, and they tend to be dissatisfied and uncommitted workers, and it's not even related to on-the-job training. This stands at a stark contrast because the literature assumes that those workers who have firm-specific human capital would be long-tenured workers, they would be very satisfied and committed because they will have made a decision to invest in firm-specific skills valuable only at that firm, and that requires a level of commitment. So it is a bit of a surprise to find that the workers who think their skills are firm-specific, in fact, are not the workers that are long-tenured and highly committed. This has important implications for the broader literature, so let's imagine Sally again. Sally may have very firm-specific skills. She may be a long-tenured employee at Plum, and she may be very satisfied, she may be very committed to Plum in the long run, and she may perceive her skills to be general, not firm-specific. So they might be firm-specific, but she might not perceive them to be such because she's never tested them in the market. She's been at Plum for a long time, and she has no reason to believe her skills are not valuable at another company. So in this sense, firm specificity might be more like an attitude than an objective reality, as the literature tends to assume. And what this also means is that employees may be acting to influence their employers on the extent to which their skills are firm-specific or not. So workers may try to convince their employees that in fact they are irreplaceable in an effort to increase their wage at the company. They are irreplaceable. While at the same time, a worker who's looking for a job may have firm-specific skills, but would want to represent them to the job market as being more general, not firm-specific at all. So this is a common practice as workers are advised to develop skills-based resumes that emphasize the general skills that they have. Even if they might be drawn from firm-specific experience, the resume would not lead you to believe that at all. This could open up a broad range of new inquiries. How do employees engage in influence tactics? How do firms engage in influence tactics? And in fact, how is this all related to sustained competitive advantage, which might be quite different from the way the existing literature considers this problem?